Hey everyone, George D here again. In the last lesson, we looked at the major scale and learned how it's structured and why each key has a different number of sharps and flats. And we also looked at it on the guitar. In this lesson, we're going to take what we learned in the last lesson and apply it to chords and learn how they're related in what's called chord theory. This will help you write songs, it'll help you in improvising and soloing, and all the things that we all love to do. And it'll also help you know which chords are in each key. And thanks for subscribing to my channel. I really hope that these lessons are helping you guys understand the songs that you want to play instead of just memorizing them. It's really helpful in the long run. So without further ado, let's take a look at this. So the first thing you need to know is what a triad is. A triad is made up of the root, third, and fifth note in a given scale. So let's take a look at the key of C. The first note in the scale is always the root, which in this case is C. And we know from our last lesson that the key of C doesn't contain any sharps or flats. So the notes that we'll be working with are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Now each note in this scale will generate its own chord, and this will be true for every key. So once we're done with this lesson, you'll know every chord in every key. So now that we know that a triad is made up of the root, third, and fifth, what we're going to do is count out each note starting from the beginning of the scale. So our first note is the root. And then we'll need a third. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, and that's our third, which is an E. And then we also need a fifth. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's our fifth, which is G. So our one chord in the key of C is made up of C, E, and G. So our next chord is a D. So the D is the 1, and then we're going to count 1, 2, 3. Our third is an F. And then we need a fifth, so we're going to count again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our fifth is an A. So our 2 chord in the key of C is a D, and it's made up of D, F, and A. And I'm sure by now you can see that you're just counting up every other note. So our next chord is an E. So the E is the 1, and then 1, 2, 3. G is the third. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B is the fifth. All right, so let's just keep going down the line. So F, A, C. G is G, B, and then we're going to come back around to D. Then A, C, E. And then our B chord, B, D, and F. And then back to C. So the next thing we're going to look at are the intervals, or the distances between each note and each chord. So we learned that a triad is made up of the root, third, and fifth note in a scale. But really, they are just thirds. And what I mean by that is the root to the third is a third, obviously. But then the third to a fifth is also a third. So if you look at the C chord, C to E is a third, and then E to G is also a third. And this is true for every chord on the board. Now let's take a look at how many whole steps and half steps are on each third. So C to E is 2 whole steps, and then E to G is 1.5. Then D to F is 1.5 whole steps. And F to A is 2. This whole step, half step layout is a key difference between these chords because it determines whether a chord is major or minor. This first layout, 2 over 1.5, is what defines a major chord. And then this next layout, 1.5 over 2, is what defines a minor chord. Now another name for this first layout is a major third. And this minor layout is a minor third. So let's keep going with this. E to G is 1.5. G to B is 2 whole steps. So that's a minor chord. F to A is 2 whole steps. A to C is 1.5. So that's a major chord. G to B is 2 whole steps. B to D is 1.5. So that's a major chord. A to C is 1.5 whole steps. C to E is 2. So that's a minor chord. And then B to D is 1.5 whole steps. And then D to F is also 1.5. Which makes this a diminished chord. So now for the next part. Our first chord, or the 1 chord, is 2 over 1.5, making it major. So we'll use an uppercase Roman numeral to show that the 1 chord is major. Now for the next chord, or the 2 chord. This uses 1.5 over 2, making it minor. So we'll use a lowercase Roman numeral to show that this is minor. Now for the 3 chord, this is 1.5 over 2, making it minor. So we'll use a lowercase Roman numeral to show that this is minor. Next is the 4 chord. This is 2 over 1.5, making it major. So we'll use a uppercase Roman numeral to show that this is major. The 5 chord is 2 over 1.5, making it major. So we'll use an uppercase Roman numeral to show that it's major. Now the 6 chord, 1.5 over 2. This is a minor chord. So we'll use a lowercase Roman numeral to show that it's minor. Now for the 7 chord, this is 1.5 over 1.5, making it diminished. So we'll use a lowercase Roman numeral with a little circle to show that it's diminished, like this. Now we learned in the last lesson that your whole step, half step layout will be the same no matter what key you're in. And since this is true, that means that your major and minor chords will be the same no matter what key you're in as well. So no matter what key, your 1, 4, 5 chords will be major, your 3, 4, 6 chords will be minor, and your 7th chord will be diminished. So let's tie it back to the last lesson just a little bit more. Say we're in the key of A major. Then we can look at the scale and say, okay, we're going to have an A major chord, a B minor chord, a C sharp minor chord, a D major chord, an E major chord, an F sharp minor chord, and a G sharp diminished chord. So let's take a look at this in the key of C major using bar chords. So our first chord is a C major bar chord. And to play this, we're going to bar the 8th fret with our first finger. We're going to place our 3rd finger on the 10th fret of the A string, 4th finger on the 10th fret of the D string, and 2nd finger on the 9th fret of the G string. And this will be our major shape. Now our next chord is a D minor chord, and to play this, we're going to move up a whole step and lift our 2nd finger, and this will be our minor shape. Now if you think of this in terms of our 1.5 over 2 layout, you can see the note that changes. So let's look at the C major chord again. If you lift your second finger, you can hear that this chord becomes minor. That's because this note is an E, which is the third in our C chord. And if we bring it down a half step, that flips our 2 over 1.5 layout to 1.5 over 2, making the chord minor. This is called flatting the third. Okay, so onward to E minor. Then you're going to move over a string for the F major. So you're going to bar the 8th fret with your first finger from the A string. And you're also going to bar the D, G, and B strings with your third finger at the 10th fret. Then you're going to move up a whole step for the G major. Then A minor. So you're going to bar from the 12th fret, or from the A string on the 12th fret. And you're going to place your third finger on the 14th fret of the D string, your fourth finger on the 14th fret of the G string, and your second finger on the 13th fret of the B string. Then our B diminished chord. So you're going to place your first finger on the 14th fret of the A string, your third finger on the 15th fret of the D string, your second finger on the 14th fret of the G string, and your fourth finger on the 15th fret of the B string. Now it's easy to transpose this to other keys. All you have to do is find your key and plug these chords in. You know, there's exceptions to every rule, but this is a great place to start if you want to start to wrap your mind around this stuff. And thanks again for subscribing to my channel. This is just one of many lessons that I'm putting together, and I really hope that they're helping you guys understand the music that you love playing and get a better understanding of music theory in general. And remember, if you have any questions, like my video and leave them in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer them. And as always, keep practicing, and I'll see you next time.